In this video, I will be showing you how to make a block in AutoCAD. And to start, I have a couch here that is drawn using your normal drafting techniques. And you can see that they are drawn all on layer 0, and I'll get into why that's important later. But here we have a couch. And again, just drawn with separate lines, arcs, things like that. Just, again, basically your normal drafting techniques. The command to make a block is obviously called block, B-L-O-C-K. When you type in block, you'll get the block definition window, which it'll ask you for a name for your block so that you can retrieve it later. And for this couch, I'll just call it couch living for a living room. It will then ask you for a location for the base point, and the base point is basically where you want to use as your insertion point, as a reference mark. It'll be important for things like things that have center lines or things that have a center. You might want to insert them from the edge or a corner. After you define your base point, then you would select the objects that are going to be part of this block. Being careful only to select the objects that are part of the block. Then you have a couple of choices of retain, which means just to retain the objects as they are. Meaning after you make the block, it'll retain all the lines as separate lines on the drawing, but it'll still create the block. The other option is to convert to a block, which means all the original objects will be combined together as a block, or you delete them. Typically, I just leave it as convert to block. Don't worry about annotative. Scaling uniformly allows you to scale the object in different sizes in one direction or the other, and allowing to explode will allow you to explode the object to bring it back to its basic form. Once you've selected the objects, click OK, and then it will make the block, and it'll become one object. After that, you can move that block over to the correct layer that you want that block on. So obviously, if this is a couch, you should move it over to the furniture layer. And that's also very important in order for you to control what's displayed on your CAD drawing, right? So if you want to, hide your furniture because there's just way too much stuff on your drawing, and you want to just look at your walls, you can control it that way. Here, I just copied multiple copies of the same couch to show you sort of the benefits of using blocks, right? So we have 5 copies of the same block, and what we're going to be able to do is edit this block, and you'll see why that's really handy. You can right mouse click on a block, go to block editor, or you can simply double click on the block and it will open up the block editor as well. It'll ask you if that's the block that you want to edit. If it is, confirm it. And if you notice, the screen changed to this gray background, and the ribbon changed a little bit as well. From here, it's basically only isolating the block in which you wanted to edit. And here I can edit the block however I choose. I can add lines, I can modify the lines, I can erase lines. Here I'm just manipulating the, a few lines on this block just to make it look different from the original. And you'll see how that works in a second. So here I'm just extending some lines to make sure that the block is complete, the drawing is complete, and that it looks drastically different than what it is. Once I'm done modifying it, I could go up to the top and click on Close Block Editor. It will ask me to confirm that I want to save the changes. And once I confirm I want to save changes, you can see that all the instances of the block has now changed. And I don't have to worry about changing 5 different copies of that couch, or even having to worry about copying that same couch 5 times. It automatically changes all the copies of that block. Doesn't matter if there's 5, doesn't matter if there's 500. It will change all of them all at once. And that's as simple as it is to make the block. Now, if you have a block already made in your drawing and you want to insert it, then just type DD insert, and it will bring you up to the insert window, and you can select all the blocks that exist in this drawing. Um, Insertion point, again, is you want to specify on the screen. Scale, rotation, you could do that here, or you could do that after you've inserted it. Once you confirm that that's the block you want to insert, it will appear in your uh, uh, display area attached to your cursor, and then you could insert it to wherever you want it. And then you could move it to the layer that you want that object to exist on, right? So if it's furniture, it's furniture. If it's a wall, it's a wall. Um, if it's door, it's a door. Another way of inserting blocks is if you just type insert, it opens up the blocks panel here where you can see the current blocks that are in your drawing, recent blocks that you've used in AutoCAD, and open up a library. If you want to change the library, you could click on library and set the path to a location on your computer of where you have a library of blocks that you might have created before in the past. Once you do that, you can just drag and drop those blocks right into your drawing. So that's another way of inserting those blocks. Now I'm going to show you why it's important to draw your blocks on layer 0. So layer 0 is a sort of special layer in that when you draw on layer 0 and you make those objects into a block, and then you insert that block will take on the properties of the layer that you inserted it on. So for instance, if I drew this couch originally on layer 0, I make the block, I insert it on layer furniture, it takes on all the properties of furniture. If I insert it on a wall layer, it takes on all the properties of a wall layer, meaning the color, the line types, things like that. When I want to turn off and on the layers, it will react just as if it was on that layer. And that's the way it's supposed to work. If, however, I draw that block on a layer that's not layer 0, that block will always take on the properties of the layer that it was drawn on. So if I originally drew that block on a wall layer, no matter what layer I insert that block on, it will always have the properties of the wall layer. I will not be able to change it. It will always be on that layer. If I go to try to click on it to turn it off, it won't turn off uh, layer 0. It will turn off the layer that it was drawn on. So even if it was drawn on the wall layer, and I inserted it on the furniture layer, it will still react as if it was on the wall layer. So it can be a little bit confusing when you're trying to turn off and on layers. When you click on things and you expect something to happen and it's not happening, in terms of layers, that's more than often is the case. So in this case, creating a layer, creating a block called test of a couch that I drew on a different layer other than layer 0. Um, and this process is exactly the same. I inserted it, it's inserted into this drawing, and I will go and try to turn off that layer. It's asking me to turn off the current layer because it was inserted on layer 0. Um, After that, I will move that block to, let's say, a door layer, right? And notice it still looks like it's on the furniture layer, but I go and try to turn that off, and you will see as I bring in the plan around, when I click on that piece of furniture, the furniture doesn't turn off, the doors turn off because I inserted it on the door layer. So, if I'm thinking I'm turning off the furniture, it's not. It's actually turning off the doors. Um, and obviously that can lead to some confusion. If I was um, to click on the furniture again, you can see that again it turns off the doors, not the furniture. If I also turn off the furniture, the the block of the furniture that I drew on layer 0, I turned off. I clicked on the furniture, it turns off the furniture layer, right? And it reacts normal. If I turned off uh, the the other couch, I turned off the door layer, and the couch turned off. So again, it adds some confusion there. So that's the other, that's why it's important to make sure that you're using layer 0 for all of your um, blocks when you're creating them. And just as an aside, as a sort of separate little discussion, uh, the array function, which I'm using here, is basically a way of copying um, an object multiple times um, fairly easily. So if this was, let's say, a parking lot or a auditorium, a concert hall, a stadium where there's a lot of repetition in terms of the seats or the layouts and things like that, I can use an array to be able to uh, unilaterally set the number of rows and columns and copy the same object. And obviously, if we had a stadium of 5,000 seats and I wanted to change the way the seat looks, you're not copying 5,000, 10,000, whatever copies of that uh, chair uh, all over the place, right? It's an array. I could redefine the block just like I did before, and it will change all 5,000, 10,000 seats all at once, which obviously is a huge, huge time saver. So here I'm just putting a couple of lines in there just to make the block look different, and you can see the array changes all the copies of it all at once. Okay, so that is how to make a block in AutoCAD, and a bonus of what an array is.